Ever wondered what basic items you should have on hand in case of a disaster? Well, you're in the right place. Today, we'll guide you through the essentials that can keep you and your loved ones safe during emergencies. Whether it's earthquakes, fires, tornadoes, hurricanes, or any unexpected calamity, being prepared can make all the difference. Let's kick things off with water containers. Without water, survival becomes a serious challenge. So for each person in your household, you'd ideally want to store at least 3 gallons of water per day. Let's do some quick math. If you have a family of 5, that's 15 gallons of water. Simple as that. Now, when it comes to picking the right containers, there are a few things to keep in mind. Avoid clear containers because light can sneak in, causing unwanted growth over time. Instead, opt for containers that are food-grade quality and dark in color. Keep an eye out for containers that have the HDPE2 label. If you see this label, this is your indicator for long-term water storage. It's one of the safest plastics out there, designed for long-term wear resistance. Also, you should consider the thickness of these materials. Thicker containers can be stacked and save space in your home. So depending on your space availability, choose wisely between thinner, stackable containers or thicker ones that may take up a bit more room. We'd recommend you have a mix of both if you can. After water, let's talk about another crucial aspect of preparedness: food. When it comes to food, you'll want to have at least a 3-day supply of non-perishable items or foods that don't require refrigeration. Think of it as having enough grub to keep your belly satisfied until help arrives. Now, here are a couple of tips for you. First, go for items that don't need much cooking or cleaning. Imagine a situation where you can't cook due to a lack of fuel or water. Things could get messy, right? So, easy-to-eat foods are your best bet. Take survival bars, for example. They're packed with calories and have a variety of flavors. Plus, they can last for a very long time if you keep the right ones around. Sure, you might get tired of them after a while, but they'll keep you fueled up in an emergency. And don't forget about canned goods. Most of you probably have some lying around the house. They can last for a good while, depending on how you store them. Just make sure to rotate them out every once in a while to keep things fresh. Another option is MREs, or meals ready to eat. These are what the military uses in the field. They come with high-calorie meals and even have a built-in heater for warming up the food. No need for extra fuel or water. They're good to go straight out of the bag. Now, do not forget about freeze-dried food. They can last up to 25 years if stored properly. Sure, you'll need to heat some water to rehydrate them, but they're a convenient option to have on hand, especially in an emergency. Again, we'd recommend having a mix of all these options at home. Choose what works best for you and your budget. Starting with the basics is fine, but if you want a bit more variety, there are plenty of options out there. Moving on, let's talk about staying informed during emergencies. Meet the NOAA weather radio. It's not just your ordinary radio, it can pick up the typical AM and FM bands. But more importantly, it tunes into the NOAA weather network. This network broadcasts crucial emergency information, so even if the internet's down or your cell phone can't get reception, you'll still be in the know. Plus, many of these devices come with handy features like built-in flashlights and a hand crank. Yep, you heard that right. It comes with a little crank that can power up the radio, and you can even use it to charge your cell phone via USB. Sure, it might take a little bit of elbow grease, but hey, it gets the job done. So having a NOAA weather radio handy serves multiple purposes and can be a real lifesaver during emergencies. Now that we're ready to face the weather, let's shed some light on our next essential: flashlights. Sure, the hand crank radio we talked about earlier might have a flashlight, but I wouldn't rely on that as your main light source. Think of it more like a backup plan. LED flashlights guarantee that you always have a strong, efficient light source, and that you never run out of battery life. With this specialized lighting, you will always have a dependable flashlight because it is made to create high energy for extended periods of time. Compared to incandescent lighting, LED light bulbs consume at least 75% less energy and have a 25 times longer lifespan. You'll save time and money by upgrading your LED flashlight to one with greater power, illumination, and durability. When choosing the ideal LED flashlight, it's crucial to take into account 4 key features: dimensions and weight, battery life, brightness, and durability. Oh, and here's a tip. When storing flashlights, keep the batteries separate. Ever opened up a device only to find corroded batteries ruining everything? Yep, it's a real bummer. so keep those batteries fresh and ready to go. Next up, let's talk about taking care of ourselves, because accidents happen, right? That's where a first aid kit comes in handy. These kits are perfect for treating minor mishaps like cuts, burns, or boo-boos. They're not for the really serious stuff, but they'll handle most of the everyday bumps and bruises. Now here's a little extra tip. Along with your first aid kit, make sure to have a tourniquet handy. In a worst-case scenario where someone is bleeding heavily, every second counts. We'd recommend a tourniquet that is trusted by experts, such as a cat tourniquet. Be wary of knockoffs, though. You want the real deal to ensure it won't fail when you need it most. Next, let's talk about a different kind of preparation. Knowledge. That's right, having some survival books on hand can be a real game changer. First up, we have the Medical Survival Handbook. Now you might be thinking, but I'm not a doctor. And that's exactly the point. This book is written for regular folks like you and me to handle medical emergencies when help might not be available. Dr. Joe Alton and Nurse Amy, the authors, have put together a wealth of information that's easy to understand and could be a lifesaver in an emergency. Another handy book is the SAS Survival Guide. It covers a wide range of survival topics and could be your go-to resource when the internet's down and you're wondering, what do we do now? It's like having a survival expert in your pocket. And for those of us who aren't hardcore survivalists, there's Just In Case. This book is more geared towards everyday folks like us, offering practical advice for getting through emergencies. It's like having a friendly guide by your side during tough times. So, whether you're facing a medical emergency or just need some tips on surviving in the wild, having a few survival books on hand can give you the knowledge you need when you need it most. Now that we've covered the essentials, let's talk about a couple of more items that can come in handy during an emergency. Ever thought about how you'd signal for help in an emergency? It's where a whistle comes in. If communication lines are down for any reason, blowing on one of these can get attention fast. So, if you find yourself in a sticky situation, having a whistle could be a real lifesaver. Next up, let's talk about masks, specifically N95 masks. These masks are designed to filter out contaminated air, whether it's from a fire or during a pandemic. In some parts of America, wildfires happen almost every year, and when the air gets smoky, these masks are a must-have. They help keep our lungs safe from harmful particles in the air. And let's not forget about the importance of being prepared for a pandemic. Remember a few years back when everyone was scrambling to find N95 masks? It's a good idea to have a stash of these for every member of your family, just in case. Being prepared means you won't have to panic when supplies run low. Let's now switch gears and talk about personal sanitation. It's the little things that matter, like moist towelettes, hand sanitizers, and garbage bags. Imagine a situation where sewage systems are down. Yikes! Having these simple items on hand can make a big difference. From cleaning up spills to managing waste, it's all about staying clean and safe, even in tough times. When it comes to having tools, you must have wrenches or pliers ready. After a disaster, being able to turn off your utilities could be crucial. Maybe there's a gas leak or a burst pipe. You'll want to shut things off fast to prevent further damage. Remember the old saying, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It's a simple rule to remember when using tools like these. So, whether it's shutting off the gas or water supply, having a wrench or pliers on hand can save the day. Similarly, you should also have a manual can opener with you. You see, we're all about keeping things simple here. No fancy gadgets or gizmos. If the power goes out and you're stuck with a bunch of canned goods, you'll be glad you have one of these. Most of us probably already have one tucked away in the kitchen, but it's always a good idea to keep a spare handy. You never know when you might need it. Next up, we have something that could be a real lifesaver. Literally. Life Straw is a simple water filter that could mean the difference between life and death. All you have to do is pop off the cap, stick the other end in your water source, and suck away. It's easy, affordable, and could be a game changer in an emergency. If you ever find yourself running low on water and need to drink from a pond or lake, having a life straw could be a real lifesaver. Now let's talk about something we often take for granted. Navigation. We're all guilty of relying too much on our GPS these days, am I right? But what if the networks go down in a disaster? That's where having a good old-fashioned map comes in handy. Don't just grab any old map off the shelf. Make sure it's specific to your area. You can usually find these at places like AAA, and they'll have all the streets and details you need to navigate around safety. Communication is key during an emergency. which is why you should do something to always stay connected as well. Make sure you have a backup charger handy everywhere you go. Sure, the hand crank radio we talked about earlier can charge your phone too, but having a little extra power never hurts. After all, our phones do just about everything for us these days, so keeping them charged is a top priority. Now let's talk about something that might sound a bit unusual: plastic sheeting and duct tape. Now you might be wondering what these are for, but trust me, they're essential for sheltering in place during or after a disaster. If your windows were to break, perhaps due to strong winds or other impacts, having plastic sheeting and duct tape on hand can be a lifesaver. You can quickly cover up the broken windows to keep out rain, wind, or even debris. Imagine if your roof started leaking during a heavy rainstorm. With plastic sheeting and duct tape, you can temporarily patch up the leak until proper repairs can be made. Similarly, during a severe pandemic that forces you to stay indoors, you may need to seal off vents and windows to prevent outside air from entering your home. In the most extreme scenarios, like the threat of nuclear war and potential fallout, these items become even more crucial. They can help create a barrier against human radiation and provide a layer of protection for you and your family. It's all about being prepared for whatever comes your way. If you want to stay one step ahead, click the video on screen now to learn more about the survival items they don't want you to have.